right? But prior to that, in Christ's day, reincarnation was certainly understood the way it, I'm sure, is, by the way. Now, within this system, which I'm now going to give you, is this too heavy, or is everybody with it? Okay, within this system, each of us is an entity. An entity. Now, how we got to be entities is another question. We can discuss that later. But at the moment, we are entities, and there are individual differences in each of us at the entity level. And you could call these individual differences, if you wanted to translate it into Western science, you'd call it like the DNA code. We have different programs. We're like individual differences in programs. And just think of it as program stuff. That's all we are. Just program stuff. Okay? And that program stuff has a thing it has to work out. It's working out stuff, which in the Indian system is called karma, which is the working out. It's like an acorn has in it the oak tree, and the oak tree is going to work out of the acorn, and it's the same game. It's all lawfully determined in that stuff that it's going to work out, just like in the sperm cell that your father injects into your mother is a whole program along with what's in your mother, and those programs determine a whole set of factors, much more than just your hair color and your body size and so on. It determines a lot of psychological factors as well. But this one is even farther out than that, because it not only determines your physical body and psychological body, but this determines whole lifetimes, right? And so what happens, in fact, is this being, which in the West we would call a soul, right? That's the way you can be familiar with it. This soul has the need to take a certain kind of incarnation, a certain kind of body. It takes a certain kind of birth, right? So each of us has been born into a birth. That's different from saying, I am this. This is the package in which I am, okay? I'm giving you now the models in which you can understand how to get free of the thing by understanding what you got in. But in order for the package to work, you've got to get lost into the illusion that you are the package. Otherwise, it won't work, okay? So the way the incarnation works is you get born into the birth, and at the moment of birth, the veil drops, and you are there, and you're looking for the breast, and you are back in it again, right? And as far as you're concerned, it's the first time you've ever been in it, and you don't know from nothing about anything that went on before because the drawer dropped, and you're going to run through the whole thing just as if this is my life, okay? Right? And you're just running off a program. This is my life, okay? And you're totally identified with your package. You totally identify with your package, right? The veil is only complete up to the point where, see, the predicament is that if you understood the full significance of the thing you were doing at the moment, you wouldn't do it the way you need to do it in order to work through the stuff that was programmed into that thing. In other words, if you've got to go through, say, a certain amount of anger and suffering and strife and so on, if you had that other level of consciousness that came if the veil hadn't dropped, you never would have done the stuff that would have burned out that thing, right? In other words, it is necessary that the thing go through that veil. It's like if you're going to paint a car and you send it into a shop, you've got to drop the door, otherwise the paint will spray and the thing won't get a perfect coating of paint. So for the thing to work, it's got to be encased in veil. It's got to be encased. It's got to be boxed in. It's like it only works in a closed compartment. That's the only way the birth runs off. Now, I'm sorry, that's a very crude way of describing it. I know it's frustrating to you. If I can think of a better example along the way, I will. All right? Because I'm sure there is a better example to describe. Because it's if a baby is born who is aware of the whole trip, like, say, some old lama happens to take a birth again, see, and is sitting there, an old lama just in this baby's body, see, it looks at the whole thing and says, well, far out. See, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't drink or eat or anything because there's no sense, because it understands what a human birth, what the trip is, and it has no desire to stay in it. And I'll explain that in a minute to you, why that is. And thus, that's what are called blue babies. And blue babies are what scientists are always fascinated by. They're babies who are born who don't seem to have any desire to live. They're just born, and they don't eat, and they don't do anything. They don't develop any personality. They just die. They turn blue, and they die. And there's a certain percentage of babies that are born. They can't find any physiological thing wrong with them. The whole reincarnation may have been fulfilled by the fetal period.